What's up, folks? This is Mr. Walker coming to you with our next round of notes. We are talking about the distance formula today. Now, the distance formula is dealing with the coordinate plane, so keep what we learned in our last section in mind as we go through it. All right, so when 2 points are on a horizontal or vertical line, we can use the ruler postulate to count the length. But when they are not, we have to use the distance formula. Now, the ruler postulate, this is what we were talking about back in adding segments. That's just drawing a line, hitting up the math problem, and then going through and figuring out how far these things are. That's nice and easy. But when we're dealing with the distance formula, we got to get a little more specific. So, the distance formula is the following: we got 2 points, x1 and y1, and x2 and y2. Basically, just saying there's our two different points. The distance formula is d for distance is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So we have to make sure that we identify we are just going from one point to the other point, one point to the other point when we subtract their x and y's. This is also really just what is the horizontal distance between the 2 points. This is the vertical distance between the 2 points. So let's go through and see a quick example. We got f at 6, -2. We got g at -2, 4. Now, we look at our x values. We got 6 and we got -2. These two we're going to subtract from each other. But all this subtraction is really saying how far is -2 from 6? -2 from 6 is 8. Over here, y2 minus y1 is just asking how far is 4 from -2. These two are going to be 6 spaces away. So we got -8, we got 6 from those two little bits right there. Now we go through, we square both of those. 8 squared is 64. 6 squared, 36. 36 plus 64 is 100. Then we take the square root. The square root of 100 is 10. And that's it. So it really just requires you to keep an attention to detail, keep everything in order, and then use the formula accordingly. Now, this is very formula heavy. Just keep up with it. You'll be fine. Okay. Now, let's jump into a little extension of this. Now, sometimes when we're looking at shapes on the coordinate plane, we're going to be asked to find the perimeter of the shape. The perimeter is the distance around a two-dimensional figure. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the perimeter of this triangle here, TRI. So we got a horizontal side, we got a vertical side. The horizontal and vertical, these are just as simple as counting the boxes in between the points. So from T to R, that's 10. From R down to I, it's a little bit longer. I believe that's 12. Yes. Now, we have to go through and find the distance for IT. Now, IT, since it's on a diagonal, we have to use the distance formula. And to help out with this, we can actually use these values that we just found. See, if you're going to look at the points for I and T, these distances that we're going to find in the formula are really the same lengths as the horizontal, which is this right here, and the vertical distance, which is here, between these points. So let's look at the formula in action. Down here, we got 2, -5. Up here, we got -8, 7. Now, -8 to +2 is 10 spaces away. 7 to -5 is 12 spaces away. So when we go through and set it up in the formula, we get 10 and 12. Now, why is this 10 positive? Why is this 12 negative? This 10 is positive because we're going from the negative to the positive side of the x-axis between these x values. The 12 is negative because we went from a positive y value down to a negative y value. So a lot of this is easy to not read. Read. It's easy to read if we look at this from the left point to the right point. Now, we got all this stuff set up into the formula. Let's go through and finish it off. We got 10 squared, which is 100. 12 squared is 144. We add those two up. We got 244. And then this right here, this is not a perfect square. So we're going to have to go through and estimate. I'm going to estimate to the first decimal place just to save us some grief. This gives us 15.6. So now that I'm here, I got all my distances around the shape. To find the perimeter, we're going to add all the distances together. So we got 10 from TR, 12 from RI, and 15.6 from IT. You add all those together, that gives us 37.6. And there we go. All good to go. All right. So when you go through and use this, it's good for us to just be able to understand when we're dealing with our distance formula, x1 minus x2 or x2 minus x1, the order doesn't necessarily matter. It matters about how far these are and to pay attention to what's happening from one point to the next point. Okay? Now, when we deal with the formula, you've noticed so far nothing that we've dealt with is negative. That's because when we deal with the square root, you can't get negative numbers in there and get an actual answer. All right? So, no worries about that as we go forward. Now, our practice, we got 3 practice problems here. I'm going to leave that to you so you can figure that out and come back after you paused and tried it. Okay? I'll see you in a few. All right, folks, what is up? It's Mr. Walker coming through, and let's get to our practice, my dudes. All right. First one we got, we're finding the distance between 1, -6, and -3, -4. Now, this stuff you can kind of eyeball here, but when you look at this, I know that 1 and -3, these are 4 spaces apart. I know -6 and -4, those are only 2 spaces away. So keep that in mind as we go through. So setting up our formula, I'm subtracting my x values. I'm subtracting my y values. When I get my -3 minus 1, that is -4. When I get my uh, -4 minus -6, that gives me a +2. So I go through and I set this up. I start expanding it. I got 16 from -4 squared. I have 4 from 2 squared. I then add those two together. It gives me a 20. And then I take square root of that stuff and get me a 4.5. Now, I stuck with 0.5 because they want us to round to the nearest tenth. All right, folks. So for the second one, we got the distance between A and B. When you go through and do it, remember, use the formula. The answer for this is, sorry about that, screen bugged out. Answer for that is 13.4. Make sure you round correctly. If it says round to the nearest tenth, that's what we're looking for anything with distance, okay? All right, next, we're trying to find the perimeter around this shape. Remember, that's us adding all of the distances around the outside. The perimeter for this is 33.3. Okay. Folks, make sure that you got your calculations written down in your book. I didn't show them because I'm trusting the fact that you went and did it, folks. And I will catch you with our next lesson. Peace out, y'all.